Hoxton in London has become a byword for gentrification. The poor forced out by the rich, small shops and pubs struggling to resist hipster economics.
Housing is a human right.
Then this happened. Residents of the New Era estate faced a rent hike after their homes were bought by a US property company. Some feared they could be evicted by Christmas, but fought back. The protests forced a Tory MP to distance his company from the American landlord, and then they enlisted Russell Brand.
How ordinary people standing together can confront authority.
Today, they won. The estate will be taken over by London property company Dolphin Square, the rents will be frozen for a year, and Westbrook, the current owner, said over the last several weeks it had been working to ensure the best future for tenants at the New Era estate. And at the local pub, there was an extra twinkle in the residents' celebrations.
We're pretty safe now in the fact that, you know, we're going to be able to remain in our homes long term on affordable rent. So, yeah, it's an amazing result.
A hard slog, but how do you think you did it?
I think we did it. I think this just shows what people coming together and taking direct action can achieve. I mean, this is not down to anybody or any other involvement. This is purely down to the grit and the determinations and the full support of Russell Brand. I have to add that without that man's help, we would not be in the position we're in today.
It's one of a wave of small-scale fightbacks over housing. These single mums occupied some empty homes in East London after the council tried to close their hostel and relocate them to other cities. And beyond protest, some want the whole shape of housing provision rewritten.
We have a very underregulated private rented sector, particularly when you compare it to our neighbours on the continent. In other European countries, they have much stronger protections for tenants. They have longer tenancies. They have limits on the amount that landlords can put up rents. That's the kind of system that I would like to see adopted in this country.
The British housing market is broken. The best off can use their homes as an investment, and the fewer cheap social homes available, the more the value of property goes up. What we saw in Hoxton today was rent control from below. Inside this pub, there are people celebrating, keeping their homes, keeping their rents secure, defeating a big American landlord. Down this street are just a few of the millions of homes in Britain where ordinary people can't afford the rent, where the rents are not controlled and where the tenancies are insecure, and they think they've scored a victory for everybody else. If so, it's a victory for a kind of politics vilified in the mainstream media and alien to Westminster, as its main proponent pointed out.
This is a result not of anything except people power, people coming together to confront lazy governments, lazy authorities.
A rent freeze and a change of ownership is not exactly a revolution, but in modern Britain it can feel like one.
That was Paul Mason. Well, I'm now joined by Ryan Bourne, the head of public policy at the free market think tank, the Institute of Economic Affairs, and by Jasmine Stone. She set up a campaign group with other young mothers after they were given notice to quit their accommodation by their landlord, East Thames Housing Association. Welcome to you both. Jasmine, let me start with you. Give us the broad picture. Do you feel, as Paul indicated in his report, that you might be part of a people power movement, that this is something broader that's happening here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's more and more social housing being demolished and social housing that's not being built. It's an amazing victory that New Era Estate has had. We've had a political occupation of 4 homes on an estate in East London, and we're demanding that they're open. There's so many homes that are left empty that are in perfectly good condition, and we need to stand together and demand that these homes are opened up.
But do you finally feel that you're being listened to by the politicians, by the landlords?
Well, no, actually. I mean, we've been in touch with our local Labour mayor. They haven't done anything to support us. We've been going to council meetings. We're locked out of public meetings, and we're denied to even be able to speak and get our voices heard. The only way we've been able to get heard is by standing together and demonstrating and resisting together.
OK, Ryan, I mean, this is a really important issue for so many people in this country. It's going to be a huge political issue in the next election. How does one solve it?
Well, we do have a real problem in terms of the affordability of housing, but I think your video made a fundamental error, which was to suggest that that problem is due to greedy landlords sort of extorting rents from their tenants. In fact, what you find when you look at the evidence is that properties and rents in London are very high, as they are in much of the rest of the UK, but the fundamental reason for that is not greedy landlords. It's the fact that over years and years we haven't built new homes. We've restricted supply artificially through green belts and other planning restrictions, and that's led to rents being very high.
So are landlords greedy or not greedy? Do you agree with Ryan?
Landlords are definitely greedy. I mean, the rents that are being charged are extremely high. People shouldn't have to be paying rents that high.
And do you think the problem would be solved if more housing was being built?
There's a lot of housing that is left empty, but more housing does need to be built, yes. But it needs to be affordable housing that's truly affordable. Affordable housing is 80% of market rate, which is not affordable for working class people.
Would you like to see rent control from above? We saw an example of rent control from below in that grassroots protest, but would you like to see rent control imposed once again from above by the government?
Yeah, definitely, but there needs to be more social housing built.
Okay, Ryan, you're shaking your head.
Rent control was disastrous in the UK. We had
Why was it disastrous?
We had it for most of the 20th century. It led to a collapse in the private rented sector from about 90% to 10% of overall accommodation. It led to a huge deterioration in quality, slum areas. You know, there's one economists don't agree on many things, but there's one thing they do agree on, and that's crude rent controls of the type we had in the 20th century are absolutely disastrous.
Do you think it's likely to happen?
Well, the Labour Party wants to implement a form of rent regulation, but crucially, theirs only lasts for 3 years, 3-year fixed tenancies, and after that, landlords can change rents. The only way you're going to fundamentally change the market rents is to build more.
I mean, you know, the economic realities today are different to what they were 30 years ago. Do you accept that, Jasmine, that actually rent control might ultimately even be bad for you?
No, I don't think it would. I mean, the conditions people are living in are bad enough already, and people, they can't afford their rent. So saying that properties, they will be left to go into bad conditions, people are living in terrible conditions already. And there's a lot of landlords that don't maintain the properties that they've already got.
And if you can't afford to live in a place like London, which is massively overpriced, would you be prepared to go to another part of the country?
No, I wouldn't. I want to be around my support network, and I think everybody deserves and should be able to stay around their support networks and families. People shouldn't be torn away from where the place that they've always grown up and from their supports.
This is not just a London problem, though. If you look at the ratio of house prices to earnings, actually, you know, in the United States, it's cheaper relative to earnings in Washington, D.C. and Chicago than Stoke-on-Trent or Swansea. So this is not just a London issue. The problem's most acute in London because that's where rents are highest. It's the most desirable place to live. But this is a nationwide problem.
Chicago less expensive than Stoke-on-Trent. There's a thought to conjure with. Ryan Bourne, Jasmine Stone, thank you very much indeed.